What'd you have going on this morning anyways?
Nothing. The girls stayed the night. We had to bring them home and, well, took them back to Mateo's mom's house. So
Slumber party?
it's a big slumber party, yeah.
Well, I'm sure the kids love that.
Oh, they had fun. I think that's, like, the first time they've hung out since, like, Mateo came home on boot leave. Because the last pictures I have of them together, he's still at a buzz cut.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah, so it's been a while for them. But I'm glad that Riley's older than her by a couple years, but they get along, so
Good.
it works. Yeah.
Well, are you glad to have him home finally?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm getting used to having another person in the house again because I got really used to living by myself. But no, yeah. I'm happy that he's home. We've been with a lot of family, though, the past weekend, so I'm, like, very tired. I'm like,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a
parties.
It's a race. When your mom and I used to come back and forth all the time, it's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, because it's both families, and you know, it's it wears you out. You know, and after a couple times, and it'll be a little bit different since he's home more often.
Right. Well, it's like, so usually he's home, and then we're racing the clock to see everybody before he goes back to California. But now we're racing the clock because he'll be home, but me and him are moving away now. So it's like, it's just racing to the end of the month to make sure we see everybody before we like leave and don't have a definite when we're coming back.
Yeah, and the first time you come back from Colorado, it'll be the same thing. You know, it'll just be because everybody wants to see you. And then eventually you'll probably get to the point where you're like, you'll stay in one spot and say, if you want to see us, come see us.
That's what Mom said she used to do. But, I mean, we're young. We have the time. I mean, I just took some time off work, and we've been bouncing around from house to house. But, yeah, it's been a lot of parties, a lot of family on both sides. And, yeah, so.
Is he any different now that he's back from the Marine Corps?
Is he any different? Or is this time, and is he any different? Oh, yeah. He's, more cocky. he's definitely more cocky.
So the training worked, is what you're saying.
It did exactly what it was supposed to do, and it didn't surprise me any. And he'll argue with me. He'll be like, "I'm not cocky. I just have confidence." And I'm like, yep. I'm like, that's usually how it goes. Anytime he goes, "Well, I'm a goddamn Marine," and yep, go figure. But
yeah, what we talked about last time, the perils of dating.
Oh, yeah.
Since you grew up with it.
Yeah, when I grew up and I was telling myself as well as everyone else, because everyone was like, "Well, who are you hanging out with now?" And I'm like, nobody. And nobody ever believed me. But I told everyone that I wasn't going to, and told myself I was never going to date military, be a military spouse. I didn't want to have military kids. Like, you know, I didn't want anyone to experience what I experienced growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met this kid, Mateo, right out of high school. We started dating, and of course, within not very long, it wasn't even a year, and he decided that he was going to go and join the Marines. So after talking to you and his brother, so yeah, he joined. And
so you're blaming it on me, basically.
A little bit, yeah. No, for sure. I think it definitely comes with a little bit of brainwashing with someone who's already done it. But it was half his brother. It was half you, half his brother. He went out for his birthday to California and hung out with his brother and all his military friends on the beach. Can only imagine what they talked about. So, and then he came home and he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm, whatever. I think I'm going to go to the Marines." And I was like, "Well, you better talk to my dad, whatever." So partly my fault too. I was like, "You better talk to my dad and see what he says." And then it was the dining room table discussion. He finally came back into my room and goes, "Yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go see the." I was like, "Oh my God."
It's funny that you say that too, because I don't, like, I've had a handful, like, usually when you're having a conversation like that, like, I don't remember that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a couple conversations that were pretty, distinct,
Sure.
But I don't, what seems to be such a pivotal moment for you guys, I don't, I don't even remember what he asked me.
There was plenty of conversations, dining room table conversations that, and Mom included, you guys had, where he would immediately turn to me as soon as we left or as soon as we were done with dinner. He'd turn to me and be like, "Yeah, like that makes sense." You know what I mean? And I was like, for me, I make jokes about the fact that everything you say turns into a lecture. So no offense to you, but sometimes I just kind of tune it out. Like I turn it off my listening ears. I'm like, well, I've probably heard this before, whatever. But to him, he didn't know you. He didn't grow up with you, obviously. So he's locked in. He's paying attention. He takes everything you say and digest it fully. So yeah, he came back and he was like, by the time he had talked to his brother, he was still hesitant about it because he was thinking about going Air Force first. And he talked to his brother, and then he came and he talked to you as soon as he got home. Just like I said, started over a dining room dinner conversation, and yeah, and then he was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And lo and behold, here we are. So you might not remember it, but whatever you said worked. So it turned out the way that it was meant to, I guess.
Yeah, in the beginning, some people, going and, joining the service obviously is no small feat, and we're very, very thankful for the people that do it and have done it and will continue to do it. But yeah, it's definitely, for the time that you're in, whether you're full-time or reserves, it's, everything else kind of comes second, and that's difficult. You've mentioned before, like, how it affects you.
Yeah, well, growing up around it entirely, I mean, like, besides Grandma and Grandma Fran, like, I can't name very many people in the family who aren't of some type of service, mostly Marines. I know there's a few Army and, other branches scattered in there, but, like, being, like, completely surrounded by it and having all these, like, even extended family, if you will, like, because all of you and Mom's friends, my aunts and uncles, that aren't biologically my aunts and uncles, but because they were with you in Virginia or they're on your team or whatever, like, there's just not a lot of adult faces I turned to growing up that weren't in the service. And that has its difficulties. And then to now have my significant other be in the service and still being like having that firsthand effect, because like what I said is like, you guys go in and you guys are taking it to the chin. Like everything that happens is like, it affects you guys, right? Mm-hmm. But there's still ripples. There's still like, it affects family members, loved ones, children, whatever. And just the other day I was having a meltdown because, he was supposed to be coming home. Mateo was supposed to be coming home and whatever. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, hold on, because he's maybe not yet. You know what I mean? And I was like,
there's going to be a lot of that.
Right. And I guess I kind of assumed, but I was so wrapped up in getting excited that he was going to be coming home and that we were going to have like these parties and these cookouts and everything that we had planned. And then to have that immediately almost ripped away and I have no control. Like, I'm so sick of that. I'm so sick of like, I never signed the dotted line myself, and somehow I am still affected by the decisions that they make for everyone else that I'm surrounded by. Like, it's like, I can't escape it. And I know it's funny.
There's no escaping the core.
And I know it's funny to you too, because like you've done it. So you're like, it's secondhand nature to you. You don't think any differently. But in my head, like, whatever, you said something to me the other day when I called you because I was freaking out. You were like, the military doesn't care about this, that, and the third that you have going on. The military doesn't care about, and you were talking about me, and like, or, him specifically, but me and, how upset I was over the plans. And I was like, okay, well, I don't care. I'm frustrated. I was upset. Like, this has been such a constant loop, repeating pattern. Like, I don't care. I never signed the papers. It's frustrating to me that I'm constantly like getting the shit end of the stick when I've never put on the uniform. I've never wanted to put on the uniform. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
yeah, I know. I
constantly surrounded by it.
I do know what you mean. And the reason why it's probably poor timed, humor. It's when you were in it for as long as your mom and I were, you get really used to those types of things happening where you just kind of expect it. And so when it does go exactly as planned, it's like Christmas come early, but you get so used to, I don't want to say being disappointed, but for the fuckery to ensue because there's so much of it, you know, and it's comical. You know, it's it's not that I was laughing at the fact that you're upset. It's almost reminiscent laughter, like, oh yeah, I remember those days, you know. But you said you found earlier, you said you found it difficult that everyone in your, you know, family circle was service in some way, shape, or form. What made that difficult?
Well, because, well, for one, growing up, you know, obviously, when you are service, well, let me back it up. So, one thing that I've learned with watching over the years is obviously when you go into the service, you on purpose they develop this kind of like mindset, you know, where it's like it's a warrior mindset, you know, like you're stubborn, you don't really care, you know, what's going on all the time. Like it's very cut and dry and harsh. And growing up, although very proud of the people that I was surrounded by, those types of military behaviors, if that's the best way to sum it up, military behaviors, those never really go away, at least not for a while. And the reason I found it difficult was because growing up around that, sometimes it's hard to find comfort in that, in the adults that, you know, I wanted to comfort me, like you or mom or, you know, anyone else for that matter. Sometimes that mindset is stuck in place. And
are you saying it's lacking compassion?
A little bit, and not in the sense of like you guys weren't, not in the sense that you guys were like constantly mean or harsh or not anything like that. It was more so like you guys had so much other stuff going on in your head, especially when I was younger and there was, you know, you were still deploying, mom was still working on base and like stuff like that. Like there was so much going on up here that like if I had a problem, it was kind of like a you haven't even seen difficult yet. You know what I mean? Like you haven't even seen what hard life is, you know, yet. And although that was true, that was hard for me to swallow as a kid because I'm like, you know what I mean? Like to me, some of my issues, as most kids do, and especially teenagers do, like a lot of issues do seem like the end of the world. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you're a kid. And so you don't know any different. And so trying to grasp like the lack of, how do I want to word this? Like the lack of just being there, you know? And maybe not even also just physically, or excuse me, just emotionally, but physically. Because, you know, you were gone or mom was working or straight up family members who didn't come home, you know, like stuff like that. So it gets really difficult to try and grasp that growing up. And then when you finally do think that you've grasped it, the fuckery hits and something happens where you're disappointed again. And then you just have to sit with that because I might be upset, but the family's upset too. So it's like, who do you turn to? You know, like it's just kind of hard to put that wall down once it's up in your guys' case. You know, like when you go and you live that life and you go overseas and you experience that, I can't imagine what that's now, you know, being older. I can't imagine what it's like to try and come home and turn that off. But as a kid, I didn't realize that yet. You know, I was just like, why is everyone so mad? Or why is it, you know what I mean? Like I didn't get it. So, you know, when you...
Is that how you interpreted it? Was it that we were mad?
It was a lot of negative emotions. It was, you know, it's stress, anger, sadness, stuff like that. I mean, those were the parts that I picked up on. Very short temper, hard-headed, stubborn. But again, like looking back and especially not watching it with like Mateo, like I'm like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? And he hasn't even, you know, like gone overseas yet. So like I can't imagine like what you and mom went through. And then to have to like come home and hit that off switch, it's just not possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's difficult. and it depends. Everyone kind of handles it differently. Some people handle it better than others. But it's one of those things where it's almost impossible to explain. You have as in depth of an understanding as you can without actually having gone through it.
Sure, and I think that is because I was consistently, like you're getting it from all sides, so it's kind of hard to not try to digest and break it apart yourself in your own head,
And I don't think that there's a certain level of programming, there's a certain level of habit building. And all of those things are for a reason. It's just whether or not they're beneficial. They're beneficial for operations. They're beneficial in combat, but sometimes not necessarily beneficial at the backyard barbecue.
Sure.
But it's just something that it takes a long time. And some people, unfortunately, some people never lose it. Or can't, as you say, turn it off. And I had said that, whether in jest or in all seriousness, it is hard to turn it off, and moreover, because you're taught that if you turn it off, that's like a form of vulnerability or weakness,
right?
So people have a hard time turning it off. It becomes your identity, and especially the Marine Corps, which is by far the most fanatical of all the branches, right? So that's why I asked if you'd noticed any differences or any similarities since you have so many Marines in your, immediate family.
Yeah, there was definitely, all of that. And then on top of that, it being hard to sometimes turn to people for comfort because everyone's, so rock hard rigid about, what's going on or, all the hardships that come with that. But then on top of that too, almost the household was almost, at least as I got older, me and Mom have talked about pushing that on to us kids, Mom had talked to me about the fact that, she was so stressed out and, worked up about everything that was going on that she walked around all rock hard and rigid. And she said that, growing up, she would push that onto me in the sense of you haven't seen how evil this world can be yet. And so in that case, I need to make her as rock hard and strong as she can be so the world doesn't kick her to her ass. You know what I mean? Like it is me now. And so
is the world kicking you in the ass right now?
No. I'm talking about that's what Mom was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Mom, at a time, Mom, was working, trying to run a business, had kids, whatever. And when she was all stressed out about everything that was going on, because it was, a tough period, she would tell me, now that I'm older, I didn't notice that, or I did notice it at the time, she didn't. She was trying to make me as rock hard and strong and independent and tough as I could be with, tough love, if that's what you want to call it. So that way when I got older,
mm-hmm.
if I was ever in this predicament, it wouldn't hurt as bad. And I think that was hard to understand as a kid because there were times that I just wanted my mom, and that was hard. And you were overseas and the kids had already been born. So there was babies that needed tended to so it was just chaotic for a long time. And I think it worked. I feel like I'm pretty independent. Even though I was never in the Marines, there are habits that you guys instilled within the house that other parents would make, jokes. For example, I had a friend, and when his mom would tell him to do the dishes, he would just kind of whatever, he would get to it when he got to it. I was
negative.
Yeah, right, see, that's what I said. Right. Yeah. My parents, I would make jokes because I'd be no, you got to go do that. You got to go get the dishes done or whatever chore it was. I was you need to go do that now. And he's and I was dude, if my parents caught that, I was dude, I was in some ways there was just,
don't make it sound like you grew up in a concentration camp.
No, it wasn't like that. But there was a lot of you've said it, the military doesn't care what you're doing. If this is what you're told to do, like, you go and do it. You know what I mean? And that was how it was in the house. Like, you got told once, and that was the only time you were getting told to do it, so.
Hopefully, yeah.
Right. And so it was just, the parenting styles are definitely different than those who are not in the service, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah.
I've got friends with military parents that, or a parent who can say the same. Like, it's not, the households are ran a little bit different because you can turn it off, but there's definitely still some habits that are there.
I think your mom and I, just due to both being in the Marine Corps, like, everyone has a job, right? And it's, if your leadership is, spot on, it's everyone has a function or a job, matching their capabilities, right? And so as soon as you're able to perform some type of job, then that's a form of structure, right? And it's not, it wasn't because we didn't want to do it or what have you. It was, it's
habits.
It's habits, and nobody should be needlessly carrying the other person's ruck, if that makes sense. You hump your own weight, and obviously age appropriate, and that's just kind of how we ran things, because that's what our second nature or first nature was, you know. So, but I mean, there had to be some positive. I'm sure there was. I mean, what were the negative aspects of that?
Of what specifically?
Just the way, the way Mom and I did it.
Like you mentioned early, maybe a little bit of lack of compassion. I think there was a lot that you guys had going on at the time. And when I was younger, I couldn't wrap my head around that because it didn't make sense to me. But, sometimes I just needed a hug or a shoulder to cry on, you know what I mean? And you guys were very, you guys were dealing with your own stuff. And like I said, I can't imagine trying to process that myself. So when I'm older and I'm looking back on it, it was just, it could get lonely at times. It could get lonely because, I mean, like I said, sometimes you just weren't even in the house, for, however long.
Yeah, I wasn't in the house a lot.
Yeah, right. And I think that was hard too because, Mom was trying to juggle so much with you guys being gone, and then you were trying to juggle so much except halfway around the world. So it was like being the oldest, there wasn't a lot of people I could turn to, in the sense of like, I need my mom or I need my dad. That wasn't really available to me for a long time. And, now that you guys are both out and home, that has obviously flipped. Except now I'm older. So it's like 9 times out of 10, I attempt and try to handle most of the things myself. But
so it worked,
I guess, if that's what you want to call it. But that's how I felt when I was younger too. Like, I felt like I had to figure out whether it be emotions or, feelings or problems, or I'm sure there's a long list of issues a teenager could have, but you know what I mean? Like, I felt like I had to figure some of that stuff out on my own. I had to grow up kind of quickly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we leaned on you pretty hard, and I think that is pretty common with the oldest, me being the oldest, I can relate to that a little bit. But it's, every teenager goes through that, right? Every teenager goes through trying to figure it out, right? And if I'm 45 years old, I'm still trying to figure it out, right? But I can see where it would not be, an open door policy, even though to your mother and I, it was always an open door policy, but we probably didn't come off like that.
And I think that's what it was. Like I said, looking, like when I was in that situation, no, that's not how it came off. It came off as everyone was always uptight, angry, irritated, or irritable, just stressed out and tapped out, like wrung thin. And
it sounds like an everyday Monday in the Marine Corps.
Right, and exactly. And so, but without me knowing that growing up and just trying to, whether it be help with the kids or help around the house or whatever, as much as I could do at those, like at that age, it's like I felt that I was helping you guys in a way. And, you know, especially like I said, with mom and the kids, like I was trying to help, but then I felt like if I needed help with something, if it wasn't a big enough issue, an issue that was like, I wasn't broken, bleeding, or bruised, it was kind of just like, figure it out. You know what I mean? Like I didn't really feel like I had a shoulder to cry on when I needed to, you know? And so, and I was a sponge. I absorbed all of those feelings. So then when I was sitting there babysitting the kids, which I did pretty regularly, like I was at 10 years old. What do you have to be stressed out about? I was acting like I was stressed out.
Yeah, you're kind of you're parroting or mimicking. Yeah.
And so, and looking back, like I was mean to the kids, you know, because I was mad that I was getting treated the way I was treated, and nothing was like, nobody was abusive. Like it wasn't like that. It was just like the lack of like the open door policy. Like you guys thought it was an open door policy, and by all means, I'm sure it was, but you guys weren't approachable because you were stressed out, you were wrung thin, you were mad. You know what I mean? So, and that's how I interpreted that. So it just lonely and frustrating and and scary, you know, because like when you were in, there were times that we didn't even know if you were coming home. That's a lot to bear as a kid. And so that makes it difficult. So, but as for, you know.
Well, how old were you when you realized that being in a military or dual service family, that you were different? Or your experiences was different? Not that you as a person were different.
Pretty young. Like when we moved here, when we moved back home, you know, like, I think that was probably one of the first glimpses I had, like, oh, maybe that's not how every house is ran, or that's not how, you know, it makes sense to everyone. But pretty young, I had this neighbor kid that I was friends with, and I was like, oh, what do your parents do for, and we were like maybe.
Yeah, how old were you when we moved back?
First or second grade?
Yeah.
Maybe? I think so.
Pretty young.
I was young. Yeah, I was young. So when like you go to the kids in your class and you're like, be like, oh, what do your parents do? And you know, the neighbor kid, for example, he was like, well, my dad sells cars and my mom teaches and whatever. He was like, what do your parents do? I was like, well, my dad kills people. I was like, and then my mom, I was, you know what I mean? Like, it was like my mom used to go overseas, but now she, you know, is like whatever. But so.
Is that what you honestly thought?
Yeah. When it was, what's dad doing right now? When I would talk to mom, what's dad doing right now? And, oh, he like.
I find it hard to believe that your mother told you that I killed people.
He kills bad guys. He fights bad guys.
Yeah.
That's what I was told.
Well, when you say it that way, that's a little bit more age appropriate.
Well, that's what it
maybe
was.
Not.
It was he kills bad guys. He's out there fighting bad guys, and that's what I told everybody. He kills bad guys. He kills people. And then and so the kid, oh, like, okay, like the kids would kind of look at me like I was batshit, and I'd be like, oh, that's just, I don't know, that's what he does. And so. And of course, all the parents are like, dear God, you know what I mean? Like, they don't know what I'm talking about. So when I would get the weird looks from that type of conversation, that was when I was like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, maybe that's not regular, normal. You know what I mean? So
well, I think it's a good example of a parent saying something kind of flippantly in the confines of the household versus.
Yeah, and the kid walking out and spewing it to the world. But yeah, that's what I told people. And then when I got, the weird looks and the kids being like, it was a half and half reaction. Half the kids were like, that's so cool. Like, oh, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, oh, your dad's a badass, whatever. And I still get that to this day. And then it was the other kids who were like, excuse me? You know what I mean? Like, they were like, what did you just say? But, yeah, so pretty young, I noticed, because also in this area that we live in, there's not a widespread group of military kids. Like when we lived in Virginia, like, and we were still living on base, Like there was a lot of
you're just surrounded by it.
Yeah, they're everywhere, you know. So there was a lot of kids that you could talk to or that didn't find it weird when you said flippant stuff like that. But then when I came here and spewed that same spiel, they were like, And I was like, oh, maybe I'm the weird one. I don't know. But so yeah, pretty young. But luckily, as I've gotten older and, you know, high school's a lot bigger and stuff like that, you found more. Like my best friend Peyton, her dad's in the military. So, you know, you can turn to her and talk to some stuff like that. And my other friend Ariane, she's got a military dad, so she understood it. You know what I mean? So it makes it easier when there's kids that you can talk to about it. So that helps for sure. But
well, believe it or not, it's the same thing. Even if you are in the service, you know, it can be very, very difficult to relate to people that haven't had your same experience, right? It can be very difficult, you know.
And that made it hard growing up too, because I was so, as I got older and I tried to digest the experiences growing up, like as I got older, I tried to digest that a different way than I did when I was a kid. Like when I was a kid, it was just kind of like, you know, like it was all I knew. So I didn't think about it any differently. But then as I got older, especially in like the high school years, I completely like shut off any emotion to it. I was so like, well, I did, but I didn't. I was mad. I was so mad when I hit high school because there weren't a lot of military kids I could talk to about the experiences growing up, at least not to the extent that they would understand. And then I was also mad because by that point in time, at least a little bit, like you guys were home most of the time, right? Like you guys were, for more or less, you guys were home and the kids had that, right? Like I felt like you guys were distant when I was growing up. And then when the kids finally got to an age where they were cognitively aware, by then you guys were like home and done with that type of stuff for the most part. I mean, you still traveled for work with like the organization and stuff like that, but I was mad, and so I shut off. Like I feel like most kids rebel in high school because they were like, you know, most kids rebel in high school because they're like, I'm going to do what I want when I want, and yada, you know, that the rebellious stage, like everyone knows what I'm talking about, you know, but looking back, I feel like I rebelled because I was mad at you guys and I was jealous of my siblings because I felt like they got what I wanted growing up, which was quality time, you know, like quality time, an open door policy that feels like an open door policy, being included in things, you know what I mean? Like mom's coaching sports teams and you're able to go to every game and wrestling match that you can. Like,
yeah,
I wanted that. And I didn't even realize how bad I wanted that until I got older and watched it with the kids.
Yeah, it's a comparison, right? It's something, you know, and I'm telling you, I can relate, every older sibling, like I have distinct memories of being like, wow, that's not, my time was not the same as my younger brother and sisters, you know, for better or for worse, you know, and everything in between.
Right.
So it's one of those things, right? And, you know, when we had that conversation, you know, when we were in Paris we were in Paris, right? When you kind of
we were in Paris and
loose.
we were in Paris and Jesus, I think it was like 2 a.m. It was late. Like we were out late because none of the restaurants closed until ever. You know what I mean? And we were sitting there and we were drinking wine and we were just like, you know, chit-chatting or whatever. Somehow we got on the topic of it. And I like...
Well, you had 3 glasses of wine. That's how we got on the topic.
That'll do it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Me and Mom, we were talking about, I remember me and Mom were talking about something in specific. We were talking about something in specific that had to do with it. And I think one of the topics was the fact that we were getting ready to go see Mark. And we were getting ready to go to his wedding. And he had military kids. Or he has a son that's in the military.
Yeah, he has, you're right.
Right. So we were talking about that, and one thing led to another, and I let loose. I started crying. I was like, I'm so jealous of the kids. I wanted you guys to be home more often. I wanted more of an open door policy. I wanted to be able to come to you guys. I felt like you guys were shut off. Like, I was mad, and I had bottled a lot of that stuff up because I didn't want to bring it to you guys as in like an FU situation. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to bring it to you guys like, please now, like, I need comfort. Like, I need, because I couldn't digest this as a kid, and I'm still trying to digest it now, except now I'm watching like you with the kids and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't even know like what's that's like, you know? So, and that was frustrating because I felt like it made me, especially in high school, closed off, stubborn, like, I don't care, I don't give a damn, you know what I mean? Which I'm sure a lot of high schoolers are like, obviously, but mine were for different reasons. Like, I was like,
well, I don't think, not to cut you off, it's not necessarily that it's for different reasons. All kids, when you're going through that stage in life, every emotion is kind of at a 10, sure. And then so you just find a target to attach that emotion to, you know what I mean? Like, my, grandma and grandpa weren't in the service when I was growing up, and trust me, I found reasons to be mad at them.
Yeah, sure, but when you have peers who haven't gone through it, and they're like, oh, I'm mad at my mom because she took my car away, or I'm mad at my dad because he grounded me and took my phone away, like, and I'm like, well, I was mad at my dad because he was overseas for half of my childhood, or over half of my childhood, you know what I mean? Like, and they're just like, okay, they don't get it, and that's what I mean for different reasons, because it's like, it wasn't like you guys grounded me and took my phone away and I was like, you know what I mean? Like, it was more so almost reasons you guys couldn't even help. Like, of course you guys signed the papers and you guys, did what you did, and that's what you did, and there's no going back. You can't change anything, but I held it against you guys because I was like, your guys' decisions affected me directly, and like, no matter what branch you're in, no matter what your job is, like, being gone like that, and especially being gone in the service, like, there's so many emotions that come with that. That's like, not only that you in the service are feeling, but the ripple effects that get left on the rest of the friends and family. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, it was constant. Like, there was always someone that was overseas. There was always someone that was, like, I don't want to say like having issues. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's just, there's things that you pick up on as a kid where you're like, the adults are talking and you're eavesdropping and you're hearing these things and you're like, you don't even realize what they mean until you get older. And then you're like, oh.
Well, give me an example of that. Can you think of an example? I'm not saying I'm obviously I'm agreeing with you because all kids do that. All kids kind of try and eavesdrop and hear certain conversations.
Could have been about anything, like adults talking about the stressors about money, or adults talking about the stressors of, say, and this is very vague, this is very broad, but like, drinking, like the drinking issues. Like, you've talked to me about that, like the servicemen and women who, kind of like, they come back and they have issues, and those issues affect the people around them. Mm-hmm. And it's almost not even their fault, but in that case, that has ripple effects, that affects friends and family. And so some of us felt that, like I can personally say that there's ripple effects. Like, after you and mom came home, obviously the whole point of this conversation is like, there were things that you guys needed to work out. Emotions, feelings, physical stuff, like mom's back always hurt. Mm-hmm. So she was always pissed about that. It's just stuff like that. Like, there's these little itty bitty things that kind of just like pile up, and then you come home and you try to switch it all off, like I said earlier, and sometimes it leads to issues. Or, like I said earlier, us being even scared that you weren't even going to come home, like there's always that. Everyone's always stressed out because no one even knows if the people that they're stressing over are even going to make it home. And that's a lot as a kid. So, and obviously we lost like Cousin Justice and stuff like that. So it's just like, there was a lot that was constantly on the minds of the adults that us kids absorbed, whether we knew it or not. And then when I was cognitively aware enough to eavesdrop, there was more and more that I picked up on in the conversations, like, oh, that's why mom and dad are stressed out, or oh, that's why, you know, so-and-so's having issues, or they seemed weird the last time I saw them, or whatever, you know, whatever the case may be. And that's a lot to digest as a kid. So it was just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was heavy on the shoulders, you know, of myself and any military kid. You know, I'm not just, you know, woe is me. Like any military kid can attest to this. Like you just carry a lot on your shoulders, whether you realize it or not, and you don't realize it until you finally let your wall down, and you're like, oh, like.
Yeah, or
shit, that sucked. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and that's me saying that with you guys being home now. I was able to kind of, after a while, drop that wall and be like, dude, you know, but.
Well, you don't have to apologize for your thoughts and opinions. You've obviously earned the right to every single one of them because you lived it, you know, and I keep going back to that conversation in Paris because, believe it or not, you know, I had, you know, it wasn't lost on me that conversation was going to take place at some point. You know, I can distinctly remember having conversations with some of my teammates while we were doing what we were doing, and you know, chasing the dragon, so to speak, as we like to say, and having a blast while we were doing it. And I can remember saying, like, we're going to pay the bill. You know, the check, the bill is going to come on this at some point. None of this is free.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you started, well, you know, I could see it kind of coming from a mile away in Paris. Yeah. And, you know, if you remember what I said to you was, you know, unfortunately, your mom and I think this is for a lot of, you know, military service members, you're very, very young. You know, you're 18, you're 19, you're 20 years old, right? And now throw, you know, a 2-front, 3-front, however you want to, you know, global war on terror. You know, it's a lot for someone that age, especially for someone that age that's right smack in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. You know, so none of it was malicious, none of it was on purpose. You know,
no, of course not.
Right. But you. What did I say? I think I said, unfortunately, you know, you were the oldest and you got to watch mom and I grow up too.
Yeah.
You know, and we made mistakes, you know, we'll continue to make mistakes. We'll hopefully try not to repeat them, but, you know, there's always, believe it or not, there's always kind of a significant difference in my experience of how like the oldest was raised versus how, you know, you're almost the test bunny,
right?
You know,
yeah.
you know, and, you know, I don't think that we've changed a whole lot with the way we do it with your younger brother and sister, but our situations and we as people are different.
Yeah.
If, you know, but to you, it's, you know, unless you look at it in that context, it's, you know, it's like, oh, the younger brother and sister, they had it better than I did. And that's a natural feeling. I can remember feeling like that. Does that make sense?
And I guess, like, not in the sense that I'm like, I know I make jokes and I'm like, oh, you let Briggs get away with this and you let Riley get away with that and whatever. And in a sense you do, but I choose to look past that. But it was more so like they have it better than I do because you guys were like there, you know?
Yeah, I was gone a lot. I think it was like at least the first 3 years, you know, and then I rolled right into contracting. So yeah, I was gone a ton. And that was, you know, believe it or not, if we're being full open kimono, that was one of the reasons why I quit. You know, I said, I'm not going to do to the young ones what I did to the oldest.
Yeah.
You know, and like I said, none of it was malicious. It was, you know, I maybe you could call it selfish, you know, as far as me constantly wanting to kind of be in the mix. But that's a byproduct of the type of work that I was involved with, and anyone that's involved with that type of work, and a ton of them, it's they like to call it a thankless mistress, just constantly calling you back, for, like I said, usually, I want to say for better or for worse, but a lot of times it's for worse, the worst just kind of comes afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank God, thank God, you and mom did do what you guys did in the sense of being in the service and your guys' job of choice. That obviously teaches me a lot in the sense of adulting, that growing up, or, even as a kid too, growing up, there were things that I was taught that not everybody else is, and I still see some of that stuff to this day, and I'm I wonder if the reason that I'm taught these things is because they were in the military or is because you were part of the organization.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, there's a lot of so noticing differences, like you said, when how young were you when you realized I'm still constantly seeing differences to this day, certain things, certain phrases, certain phrases too, it's even down to the way you guys talk. I pick up on that type of stuff and I don't even realize I'm doing it. I was on the phone at my restaurant job trying to give somebody directions to my restaurant's drive-through because it's kind of hidden in an alley. And
would you give him a 10-digit grid or something?
No, I was I said something along the lines of I gave him half of the directions and I said, "You tracking?" And then he was like, "Yeah." And then he kept going and he was like, "Wait a minute." He was like, "Are you have you ever served in the military?" I was like, "No, my parents are just whatever." I didn't even, sometimes I forget that that's a service, a military.
Oh, the jargon is thick. Yeah, you can tell. You can tell.
And I didn't, and when you're someone who isn't constantly surrounded by it, you can tell. But in my head, that's just the way you speak. You specifically, there's a lot of things that, and mom and everyone else, there's some of the things that you guys say that I don't even realize is not actual common phrase. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's definitely ways that I've picked up on some things.
But you never ever wanted to do it yourself.
No.
You think that's because the overwhelming majority of your experiences you felt were negative, and I'm not trying to paint a poo-poo picture, but it's kind of a flip of a coin, right? A kid that's surrounded by it is either going to go, jump head first in or not, steer away from it altogether.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not for me. That is a common question you get. There was never any push from your mom to join. Obviously, you've always explained the benefits and the negatives of it, the pros and the cons, if you will. But no, you guys never pushed me to join. Like I said, it is a common question. It's always especially being the oldest, once I graduated high school, and even before that, it was, all the family members are always like, "Oh, are you gonna, what's your plan?" Thinking I'm gonna go into the military. And no, it's not for me. And yes, it's because my only thoughts around the military are negative. Obviously, I'm very proud of all the service members that I'm surrounded by, and it's no shade to them, but it's just not for me.
No, of course not. And that's a very, believe it or not, the worst thing that someone can do is to have those feelings
and join anyways.
But then succumb to the pressure, which is why we never pressured you at all. I don't think anybody ever pressured you. You'd have to tell me if that's an incorrect statement. But
no.
If you have to want to do it, and maybe somebody goes in maybe wondering, and then they find out that they like it or they find out they don't like it. But the worst, someone that goes in kind of against their own will because of outside pressures, that's a long enlistment.
Yeah, you're just bound to be miserable. Yeah, no, I had too many negative thoughts about it. One, like I said, I didn't want to have military kids. I didn't want to have a military spouse. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was ready to get away from it altogether.
And then they pull you back in.
No joke. I still get texts from the recruiter almost every month. But yeah, no, just because unfortunately with the military and with my experiences, like, one, there's obviously, you know, the distance of family members and of loved ones, you know, like being overseas or, you know, or not coming home or that type of thing. I don't have any wish to continue that. And the anger that comes around it. I mean, like, there's so many reasons I could list. Being in the military is one of the best things that you could do for yourself. However, I just have too many negative feelings about it to want that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
One, the distance from family members, being gone, being overseas, and then those loved ones being scared, you know, like it's a scary time when people are gone and like you don't know, you know, what they're doing or where they're at or if they're going to come home or that type of thing. That's terrifying, and that's not something that I want to have to instill in other people. And on top of that, there's death. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the biggest things that I've wrapped the military around is, you know, people die. And unfortunately, that's the harsh way to put it, is you're going over there and you're sacrificing yourself for your country. And as honorable as that is, the people that it affects, like, that's hard, you know? So that isn't something that I'd want for myself, or the people around me. And so, I've just never had the urge.
Yeah, well,
doesn't seem fun.
I'm kind of glad that you didn't, believe it or not. You know, that's probably hard for you to believe, but you know your kid as well as anybody. And when you said you didn't want to go, I was like, good, you know, good. We've had so many family members go. And we'll probably continue to go. Every now and again, it's nice somebody kind of goes their own way.
I think the kids will.
Probably.
Yeah, I think the kids will. I don't know. They just give off that vibe. But no, after everything that I've seen and heard and felt, like, I just don't have any positive feelings about it. Now, I can vouch for it. Like, especially when Mateo went in, I was like, you know, like, it's structure. You know, like, you can turn it into a career. You can go in for the minimum amount of time and you'll still leave with something that you learned. Like, it teaches you and makes you a stronger person most of the time, if anything. There's nothing wrong with going in, you know? It's just like, when he joined, that was one of the things I said, you know? I was like, hey, look, like, I'm going to stick with you through this, but, like, it has to be understood that you're no longer doing this alone. You know what I mean? Like, you've got someone on your right hip that it's going to affect, whether it's positive or negative, you know? And so you're the service member who's on, you know, the boat per se. And when the military rocks the boat and creates those ripples, like, I'm, you know, your family members and now me, your partner, like, those
you're going to feel it.
You're going to feel it. And so, or I'm going to feel it. So I need, like, that just needs to be laid out on the table. Like, you can't, I didn't want to be shut out again. And because that's what was mostly, you know, like, frustrating growing up. Those were the feelings that I had around the military. Is it was lonely, it was frustrating, and it was difficult to comprehend, especially at that age. So, you know, now that I'm older, it's going a little bit smoother, of course. And obviously he's not, like, going overseas, and now he's home and doing reserves, and, like, so it blew over pretty fine, you know, but it doesn't matter any way that you do it. It's going to be hard on the people around you. And I think, you know,
well, imagine had you not had the childhood experiences that you had, and then you started dating a service member, right? So there's always kind of a, you know, there's pros and cons to all of it. You know, even the cons, you know, are kind of split 50-50, right? It probably sucks when you're going through it. But on the tail end of those experiences, there's always kind of a positive to pull out of it.
Definitely
right?
teaches you stuff. Like I said, I feel like I'm definitely more, well, now that I'm older, I'm definitely more aware of the ways that some of my behaviors and actions or ways that I think about things do differ from other people, who maybe aren't completely surrounded by service people. So yeah, there's definitely, like I said, it's not an all woe is me. Like there are difficulties to there's difficulties to growing up in any kind, right? Like every kid's got their own story. Every teenager's got their own, this is what I'm mad at today. You know what I mean? Growing up, like everyone has their own issues. I just feel like growing up around the military, like it's just different.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. And like I said, it's frustrating and it's makes you angry at some points because you don't have any control over it. And I think that was one of the things that I had to learn how to ignore too, was the fact that I didn't have control, especially now with Mateo. I don't have control over any of it. And that makes you feel a little helpless at times, because there's things that I want to, like, I don't care what the military wants anymore, like I don't care. I just don't care.
Yeah, I understand. Trust me. You have those feelings when you're in the service as well.
I'm sure.
Being, if you want to feel, I don't want to say helpless, if you want to feel not in control, then go ahead and hand your, 4 years, 8 years, 10 years, 25 years of your life over to an organization that has one sole function, and that is to destroy everything in its path when it's called to do so, and it doesn't matter if you're a cook, a baker, or a candlestick maker, the machine and the machine's job is what matters, and trust me, there was plenty of times where I was doing things against my will.
Yeah.
That's just part of it. That's just the agreement that you make with the organization, and you being, adjacent to it or connected to it. It's just something that you're either make peace with it or just know that you will continue to struggle with it.
Right. Yeah. And I think I have, especially as I've gotten older, made peace with it. Like I said, growing up, you can't digest it, like because you have no idea, like what those family members are seeing over there, what, like, as you get older, you start to kind of gain the stories, like you hear them enough and you can start to try to pick it apart, and figure it out. But growing up, you just have no idea. And so, and I still don't, you know what I mean? But I have a better, at least to my knowledge, I feel like I have a better grasp of what it all was for, if that makes sense, like everything happens for a reason. And yeah, in some way, shape, or form, you weren't necessarily out there because you wanted to be. It's because you kind of had to be. Now, you wanted to sign the papers. So at the end of the day, anyone wants it when they sign, for the most part, when they sign up. But yeah, I was just mad at you guys, and I was mad at my siblings, and I was mad at you guys, and I was mad at the military, if you want to call it like that. Like I didn't.
Well, what made you think, or at what point did that feeling kind of dissipate? How'd you cross the street on that?
When you guys admitted to it, like when you admitted to like realizing, or not realizing, but knowing, like when I was like holding my anger with you guys, I was under the foolish impression that you guys didn't like realize, if that makes sense, like that you guys didn't know how I felt and what I was feeling. So it took the night that we were in Paris, when I brought it up finally to your face, you know what I mean, to your guys' faces, and I was like, look, like, I'm pissed, and you guys being like, yeah, we know. And I was like, oh, like I wasn't expecting you guys to.
What were you expecting? Were you expecting for us to push back and blow our tops and
not blow your tops, but definitely just kind of be like, it is what it is. And I guess in a sense you were, but I wasn't expecting you to be like, one, I knew this was coming. Two, I knew you've been angry this entire time. And three, like I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
Because no offense to you guys, but you and Mom are both Marines. You guys are both pretty stubborn-headed people. And in that sense, I was waiting for somewhat of a rebuttal. One part of me didn't want to deal with that rebuttal. Like, I didn't want in any sense to feel like it was some sort of argument, like it sucked for you. Try to be there. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then two, I didn't want to make you guys feel bad. I didn't want you guys to feel like I was calling you guys terrible parents or like anything like that, because that wasn't the case, obviously.
Oh, you were just venting. And like I said, just like you've earned the right, to your opinions and your feelings, you've earned the right to vent, You earned the right to vent because, that is it's a difficult, it's a unique, not unique in the sense of, in comparison to the majority of kids your age, you belong to a club, and it probably would have been a lot different had we stayed in, and me not gone to the, the contracting side of it, because you would have always been surrounded by other kids your age, once again, for better or for worse, kind of going through the same thing. Nobody thought we would be, at war for 20 plus years,
Yeah, and that's weird too, growing up.
How so?
Trying to understand how is it weird? Trying to understand why you were over there and why Mom was stressed out and why Cousin Justice didn't come home and why, every, what wasn't unfortunately few and far between was your, photos that you would put up on the bar of people who you had lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I had only had a phone for a year. You know what I mean? Like, I had only had even access to the internet, social media wise, for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to grasp why we were at war, what we were at war for, why you were always gone. On top of why you were always gone, why we were losing people, stuff like that. That's hard to digest as a kid.
It's hard to digest now, and I did it.
I'm sure, but it's it's just weird. It's weird looking back, thinking that I the way that I handled it and the way that my kid brain tried to process it, because I just never did. It was always just it is what it is, unfortunately, whatever. I didn't realize how much of a toll it was taking on me until I got to high school, and I would hear all the other kids talk about what was going on, how they were talking about it or whatever, their parents' opinions and views, and I was like, you guys have no idea. You know what I mean? And I still do that sometimes. People just can't.
You can't understand it unless you've been through it or been,
adjacent to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard to explain too, because sometimes I get mad. I don't even want to have to explain myself,
Well, going back to the question, why do you think now that we were in Iraq in 2003?
Well,
and this isn't a test question. I'm asking you, what kind of reasoning or what whys did you come up with, right, when you were going through that?
It was very atypical. The the just protecting, right? Like you were protecting us, and people were over there, men and women were out there protecting us for our freedoms, you know what I mean? And for our country and whatnot, obviously with the attack and everything. And like, I know that that's kind of what sparked the fire, right? But as a kid, like being that young, like I hadn't realized that yet. You know what I mean? Like you don't put 2 and 2 together when you're that young. Looking back, you know, it's like, one, it's what you had to do. You know what I mean? Like you guys, you get the orders and that's kind of that. You don't really have to understand the why. But growing up, it was always like if I were to like ask mom and dad about it, or, you know, stuff like that, or excuse me, if I were to ask mom about it, it was always like well, you know, or anybody for that matter, you know, when you're at school and whatnot, like even the teachers would talk about it. Well, they're fighting to protect the country and the men and women who, you know, live here. Men and women are fighting to protect other men and women that live here and our freedoms and stuff like that. So as a kid, that was as deep as it got, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty surface level, kind of canned response.
Yeah,
and
right.
like I said, I'm not trying to quiz you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's certain things like, and part of the reason why I ask is because I was gone for all of it. You know, I was gone. I wasn't even around for you to ask me. You know, because I would have told you. You know, you would have gotten a different answer depending on when you asked me. But yeah, I was just genuinely curious. You know.
Yeah, when you're that little, adults don't normally dive too deep in the weeds.
Well, no, because you can't comprehend it, and there's definitely certain things that you know, that we try and shield you from. You know, how old were you? I think you were a junior or senior in high school before you even asked me what I did or who I worked for.
Yeah.
You know,
I had a general idea.
But it's you know, there's no. That's age appropriate, you know. And I gave you an age appropriate response. You know, there's no reason to, you know, tell that to a young kid.
Right, and I think though sometimes that was difficult too, because when you are a kid and as you get older, slowly but surely you start to kind of connect your own dots.
Yeah, you make up your own story.
Right, and so yeah,
that's in absence of facts sometimes.
Right, absolutely.
Right. Well, if there was, and if there are kids that, you know, your age and younger that are going through, you know, that have service members in their family or dual service members, what's something you would want to say to them?
Don't try to digest it. I don't want to say ignore it, but don't try to figure it out on your own. Reach out for help and ask the right questions. You know what I mean? Like, and by help, I mean, you know, reassurance, like, you know, help as in helping yourself understand it, you know, better, so you don't draw your own conclusions, because 9 times out of 10, those conclusions are wrong. Unfortunately, and find people that are going through it, lean on them because they'll get it, you know what I mean? So you don't have to feel alone. Don't bottle it in, because it's exhausting trying to figure it out and trying to understand it, and it's lonely feeling left out of the equation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So in order to avoid that, I would just say ask for help, lean on people, and yeah, don't try to digest it yourself, because I tried to digest it myself, and not only did I get it wrong time and time again, it'll just never click. You know, like you sit there with your head spinning at night like, I wonder what Dad's doing right now, or I wonder, you know, what.
Well, did you ever feel like I wasn't giving you honest answers?
When I would ask you?
Yeah.
No, you were just always really vague. It was always the I'll tell you when you're older answer.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head at the time, because I had always drawn my own conclusions, in my head, part of me was like, well, I've already got it figured out. You know what I mean? Which was wrong, of course, obviously. So Than to just figure out that you're wrong. It's just like oh, well, no kidding. You know what I mean? So, no, I don't think you weren't being honest. You were just always super vague, which then leads, a kid to try to, even with those answers, put pieces together, so that's probably what I would say to that. Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't ever think you were lying to me. You were just, I could tell you were leaving out bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, once again, like, when you get asked those questions, there's just certain things that need to be left out. There's certain things that, and not because of some, crazy woo-woo, oh, it's classified or blah, blah, blah. There's things that you don't need in your head at that age, good and bad. Good and bad. There's, all I guess all you really need to know is this is, the bare minimum, if that makes sense, because until you're at an appropriate age, that's, most parents will do that.
Yeah. And I guess that makes sense. But I also think that, like, growing up, I was surrounded by so many of you guys that, like, I wanted to know. Because I was constantly listening, constantly observing, constantly, like, I wanted to be in the loop. Because I wanted it to make sense. And when it didn't, it was frustrating and it was lonely and it was, you know what I mean? And obviously you guys were doing that for the right reasons. That type of stuff is important. Obviously, yeah, like shield your kid from things your kid doesn't need to know yet. But then the ways that it would come out otherwise, you know what I mean? Like the way you guys parented, the way you guys, were stressed out all the time or angry or all the other ways that it came out in some sort of leaking form. It was hard for me, maybe it's hard for other kids to try and take that and create an answer from it, because 9 times out of 10, 1, the answer is going to be wrong, and 2, it's a negative answer, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like growing up, all the reasons that I put together that you and Mom like were the way that you guys were, without knowing.
Oh, you thought it was because of something negative?
Yes, like I thought, you know what I mean? And or my answer was a negative answer rather than no kid, like this is what we went through. This is why we are the way we are right now. You know what I mean? This is how hard this is. You're not going to tell that to a 12-year-old.
No.
So the answers that I would draw, the conclusions that I would draw, weren't me giving you guys grace. It was me like, no, they're just being assholes because, this, that, and the third, which is wrong. And that's obviously a negative answer when, obviously, again, you guys weren't being malicious or something like that. But in my head, that's not what I was thinking,
Well, do you feel like you have those answers, those questions answered now?
Mm-hmm. In my head, I think I do, yeah. And they were hard to come across. I think that the military of any branch can mess you up, especially when you're involved in an issue of that magnitude, being overseas and being at war and stuff like that. Like I said earlier, you can't turn that off.
Mm-hmm.
So coming home, there's obviously some stuff mentally that you can't turn off either. And so that can leak out. No matter how much you try to bottle that in, that can leak out and affect the people around you. So as for the answers, yes, I like to say that I think mentally you and Mom were having a hard time due to all the constant stressors and everything. That can mess you up after a while, constantly being stressed, constantly being scared, constantly being angry, constantly being in that state of mind, you know, in your case, being in that state of mind while you were over there, that when you come home, it can show itself in other ways. So that would be my answer to that. Like, I would say, you know, I can put 2 and 2 together in my head now, when as a kid, I couldn't. Like, why is dad so mad? I don't know. Why is dad or mom having an outburst? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? You can't, why is mom so mad at me? What did I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, 9 times out of 10, they're not mad at you at all. It's something else.
Exactly. But as a kid, you don't know that. So now looking back, I'm like, oh, I know why she was rung thin, because she's working, she's going to school, she's raising 3 kids, dad's overseas, so she's scared about that. Like, there are things that when you're a kid, you don't even realize it. I was just like, I just started to ignore it for the most part, you know, like, or like, it was like one of those things where you were like, oh, I got to wait till mom's like in a good mood before I ask her if I can do this. Like, she's mad right now, so I can't ask her, but I'll ask her in a little bit when I can do this. When you're a kid, you don't realize, you don't stop and think, well, why is she mad?
Yeah.
It just kind of turned into me or the kids probably did something, or the dogs made her mad or whatever, but like one of us did something. Well, no, it's because she was juggling.
Yeah, it's just a situation.
Yeah,
it's just life.
Right.
You know?
So that in the sense, like, I would, which I can still only understand to a half of an extent, because I'm only working and going to school. I have no kids. I don't pay a mortgage. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I still can't completely wrap my head around it, but I can sympathize for her now, and you, for the most part, because no, I never went out and did it, but after the stories and the adult talks now that I am older, like, I'm like, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, once you can start to conceptualize, you know, and you have to be a certain age to conceptualize, or at least understand or have a vague notion of, you know,
try to conceptualize.
Yeah, what those experiences, you know, will do, you know, in one way, shape, or form to everybody that goes through them. You know, it's easy to just sit there and say, well, it is what it is, you know, but
yeah.
But that's part of the, you know, when I got back, and your mom could attest to this, when I got back from the invasion of Iraq, I probably really didn't start to truly kind of process that event or those events until I had been teaching at the sniper school there for probably a year or two, you know? So it's not none of it is kind of a quick thing, you know, it happens over time. And, you know, and spouses, whether they're dual service or not, especially if they're dual service, you know, they've gone through some of the same experiences, but it's it's a deployment for the person back home too. And for all the things that you mentioned, you know, and those things take their toll, you know, in other words, you don't have to be shot at on a daily basis to be traumatized, right?
Sure.
You know, it's just a different type. It's a different type of stress. It's a different type of anxiety, you know, and it's almost worse for the people back home, that I'll say frankly, because when you're in combat and you're on operations and you're in those types of environments, you don't have time to think, you know, and I'm not trying to sound dramatic, but you have something to be focused on that kind of takes your mind off of, you know, all the noise, so to speak, right? I used to tell people all the time, like, being in combat is one of the easiest forms of existence that there is, because all I have to worry about is the task at hand. Don't get myself killed and don't needlessly endanger, take care of my guys, right? Everything else it doesn't matter, right? You know, where when you're at home, you have all kinds of things that are pulling at you. You're going in 1,000 different directions, on top of the worry and the anxiety and the so on and so forth, right? So it's almost worse, you know.
Right.
Now, if you would have asked me that 15 years ago, I would have probably had a different answer. But, you know, as they say, with age, hopefully comes wisdom. And it's, it's none of it's free, right? None of it's free. It's, nothing's free, right? And you move through it, you put your head down, you push through it, and you hopefully come out a better person on the other end of it, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely an experience that, although had its negatives, like, I was happy to have, because it does definitely translate. The things that I've learned have translated into my adult life now. Such as, Mateo being in the military, like, I know what having it was almost harder for him than it was me, because he didn't have military parents.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't, he wasn't used to people being in and out of the house constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But, I was used to it. So when he left, I was like, oh,
yeah, you're like an old hat at it.
Yeah, I was just like, it sucks for the first week or two, and then you just fall right back in a normal routine.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course I missed him, and of course there were days that were harder than others, but outside of boot camp, because when you're in boot camp, you're just go 24/7. You don't have time to think about anything, But like I said, unfortunately for me, for the times that he's been gone, which has been over a year now, you just go back into routine. I've already done it, so I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easier for me to.
So I guess that's what, earlier in the conversation, it sucks when you're going through it, but
it teaches you
you're
some
still
things.
right. You're still prepared for similar situations.
Yeah.
And that's a natural byproduct of being in the service or being connected to the service in some way, shape, or form, because, it's essentially your training.
Sure.
You're training okay, I've done this before,
Mm-hmm.
And the first time always sucks, the second time it gets a little bit easier. It's never, never without it, the suck factor is always there. I mean, that's slang for the Marine Corps itself. They just say, hey, welcome to the suck.
Yeah.
This is, there's going to be a lot of this that's unpleasant, you know?
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it was difficult. It was frustrating. There were positives and negatives, but overall, it teaches you. And
this is a little bit of forecasting, but how would you feel if your eventual or future children wanted to go in? How would that make you feel?
I haven't really thought about that yet. I'd be proud of them. That'd be different. I don't know. Well, how would you react? If Riley and Briggs went in, how would you?
I think we'd have a very candid conversation. And Riley and I already have, because Riley talks about going into the service like it's past tense.
Really?
The other day she was like, "Oh yeah, after I'm a corporal and I'll move out of the barracks," and I was like, "Hold on a minute,
She's already got it figured out,
right?" But it's a fair question. I think I would be proud, obviously, but they would have as clear of a picture of the positives and the negatives that I could possibly, and or your mother could possibly provide. In other words, when you get the spiel from the recruiter, it's every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast, and yada yada yada.
Sure.
And I even succumbed to that a little bit, even having, grandpa and all the uncles and, being surrounded. I was surrounded by it, no different than you. But yeah, I think they'll go into it, if they go into it, as eyes wide open as humanly possible. And in that way, at least, when you make your own decisions, theoretically, none of it should really be a surprise.
Right.
Because in every branch of the service is different. In every, even in your individual branches, not every Marine's experience is the same as the guy to the left and the
Sure,
right? Like something as simple as it's the experiences. There's a lot of obviously common experiences that everyone shares, but then as they, each individual job is going to have a completely different experience.
Sure.
Life in the air wing is starkly different than life in the infantry. And, does that make sense?
No.
All the way down to quality of life and, all the inner service or inner branch, ribbing that we give each other. Right. The Air Force versus the Marine Corps, you're talking about apples and oranges just on quality of life, right? And the Marine Corps does that by design. Obviously, we used to joke and say, they got to keep you pissed off all the time, right? And they do a good job of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone were to go in, it would make sense if Riley and Briggs did. I don't know how I would react. I don't know. I would say right now that I wouldn't want them to. Because it is scary and it's hard and it's difficult and for all the reasons that we just talked about. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it would be their decision. If you're 18 years old and you want to go, then go. I'm not gonna stop you. That's your decision. I won't ever push it though.
Sure. Yeah. Well, they got plenty of, great uncles and family members that'll probably push them for you.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm like, I'll, I don't.
Well, do you ever feel, what do I want to say, kind of left out because you're one of the few in the family that haven't?
Sometimes, but then I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Sometimes I do, especially on Memorial Day because everyone's in their uniforms and now Mateo walks around in his uniform with you guys and there's a picture of all of us together and I'm like the only one in jeans and a t-shirt. Sometimes I look at that and I'm like, man, like it would feel badass to wear that outfit and it would be like, you know what I mean? Like for all the reasons that you guys do.
I just don't want to pay for it.
Yeah, hell no. No,
That's all right.
And I say badass as in like I've seen the recruiting videos, like they do get your heart racing, like they give you goosebumps and they do a good job and it looks dope. I just know it's not, you know what I mean? Like it looks cool as shit, but
that's just, the cool part is about as long as the recruiting video. The rest of it sucks.
Exactly. And I know that. That's why I'm like, to say that you've done it must feel great. And I'm sure, even if you just did the boot camp and the, whatever, like to say that you were out there and you've done it, awesome. And that would be cool, like that'd be nice. But I just know it's not. Like no recruiter's ever going to fool me. Like some recruiter just texted me the other day while I was at work and I went to high school with him and he was like, hey Madison, you think you're 100% about college? I was like, get the hell out of here. Like I was like, I don't. And I think he was like, I'm just doing my job. And I was like, okay, do your job and text this number real quick. And I sent him your number. But anytime the recruiters came in and to the high school or whatever and, tried to whatever, I felt like I could see right through him. I was like, you are such a liar. Like, I was like, I know you're lying right now. Like, this is not all holidays and feasts and whatever. I know this shit can suck. So I always wrote down your mom's number and...
Yeah, we had fun with that. I enjoy it when they call. That's a pretty ingenious way to get them off your back. At some point you're gonna have to give them they'll stop calling eventually. You're still kind of in that age window.
Yeah, where they
it's there's plenty of people that don't go in right after college or high school.
Right.
And so he's gonna be hounding you for a while, or they will be hounding you for a while.
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I thought it would be sometimes like I do get a little bit of FOMO, like I'm like, do I just do it to do it? You know what I mean? But then I think about it for 5 more seconds and I'm like, no, there's a reason I'm not doing it. And I'm going to stick with that because it's just not for me.
Yeah, you should stick to your guns.
Yeah, it's definitely not for me. And like I said, by being constantly surrounded to it, I'm about as adjacent as you can get to it. You know what I mean? Like I said, without signing the papers, especially now that I'm older, see it all, So I'm like, I get it. Yeah, so.
Well, what do you have coming up on the horizon? What's the next chapter? Getting ready for the big move.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to move to Colorado Springs with my friends and Mateo. We're all kind of moving as a pack, and going over there to the Springs together. And I'm going to finish school while I'm out there. I just got accepted. Well, I didn't just. It's been about a month, but to NIU, Northern Illinois University. I
heard they got a good ROTC program.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah, I've already got. And it's funny that you say that, because when joking. I do put down my stuff because I use your mom's benefits, of course. So my number immediately gets, when I tell them that I need to talk to the veterans office, my number, they get excited. They immediately slingshot my number to every.
You start getting an uptick in calls.
Dude, I'm like, I just need to talk to someone to help me register for my classes. Like, I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? But.
And what's your focus in? Is it marketing, business marketing?
It's management. So I did business, and I did my associates in business with while also completing the management program at SAUC my first 2 years, and then now I'm going and doing the basically management and leadership, bachelor's in management and leadership. It's a bachelor's in science of management, but I don't know if I'm going to minor in anything yet. I don't know, like, if I want to tack something else onto that, because I was looking at what they were at, or, but I'm like, let me just get started with the classes that I need to get started with, and then decide if I'm going to tack something else on later. But yeah, so I've been working. Mateo's been home. We've been celebrating that. I've been on and off the phone with, the moving truck company, the tire company. Just
fun stuff, isn't
it? The really fun stuff of being an adult. But yeah, we're getting ready to pack up and move. We go to DC for you next week, and then the week after that, right when we get home, because we leave. They're going to get the moving truck like the day before we get home. And then, I'll be turning around and leaving. So, yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited, but I'm scared. I'm a little bit nervous about the unknown, but that's kind of the fun part. But I'm like, honestly, just scared to find a new job because I love my job here so much. I work at a restaurant downtown, and such a close-knit group of people, and
you just had a going away party, didn't you?
Yeah, they've thrown us now. This is the second one, 2 going away parties. The manager got us all gifts, and they're awesome. It's, like I said, such a family-oriented place, such a close-knit group. It's a Thai sushi place called Samkit, and
shout out to Samkit.
Right, yeah, love them. And the sushi bar chef, I babysit his kids. He's my landlord. Like, there's just a lot of connections.
Yeah, it's a good crew.
Yeah,
you lucked out. You lucked out having that be kind of your first.
Yeah, it's a really good crew, and I've worked jobs on jobs before. So yeah, I love my job, and my friend Peyton works there too, and we've already talked about the fact that, like, when we go out there, it's going to be really hard to find something that's like that, if even as close to that,
Yeah, well, it's all trial and error, right? Like, right. If you stay there for a little bit, and if you don't, find what you're looking for, you go someplace else, right?
Right. Yeah, but I'm excited. It'll be fun, and this will be my first time. I've moved out of the house now for almost a year, so I'm definitely not unused to living alone, but also I won't be living alone. I'll be with a group of people, but it'll be my first time being like this far away from the rest of you guys. So
make you nervous in a good way?
Yeah, kind of. It would make me a lot more nervous if I was going to be alone, but I'm not. Like, I'm going to have my crew with me, so I'll miss you guys and stuff like that, but all the more reason to come back and visit. So I'm definitely not
well, you've got a lot of uncles out there, so you'll be all right no matter what.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, at least there are people everywhere. What you used to say that to me all the time, like, someone's always watching, and I was like, yeah, whatever. As I was growing up, whatever, didn't pay attention to it, and that reigned to be true a couple different times over and over. So
yeah, especially nowadays, it's somebody's always watching.
Wasn't I in DC and somebody texted you and said that they saw me? Like, yeah. I remember when you told me that. That was the first time that it clicked. I was like, holy shit. Like, that's kind of scary. You know what I mean? Like, we had a field trip to Washington, D.C., and I get a text from my dad, or maybe it was mom, where they were like, so-and-so just texted dad and said that they saw you. And I was like, who the hell? Like, I was, running around with my friends, not paying attention. And I got that text and I was like, holy crap. Like, someone is always watching. I was like, that's kind of scary. But
yeah. Well, after, 26 years, give or take, the internet, I'm sure will check my math, but you build kind of a wide
reputation
or network, everything is connected. Yeah, you make a lot of friends and have a lot of teammates, and they're kind of spread all over the place. It's hard to go anywhere without, running into somebody somehow, some way. But that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the main things that's making me comfortable about you moving out there, believe it or not, is I know all my guys are, out there in some way, shape, or form. And if there's a problem, there's no better uncles to have.
Sure. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, I'm excited, overall excited. There's obviously, like I said, just a lot of stuff that we got to get worked out, but I already sold my dining room table, sold my couch to you guys. Like, starting to offload some stuff. So it's starting to become real, that's for sure. But
good.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm excited.
Good. Well, is there anything that you want to push out before we sign off? I mean, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for
having me,
sharing all those things. I'm sure it'll be very beneficial for, kids your age, or young adults and kids that are going through the same thing you went through. It's pretty personal stuff, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, anything to help the old man, I guess. No, I think we covered most of it. Yeah, like I said, just if you're out there and you are a military kid, don't bottle that up. Don't try to figure it out yourself. Definitely ask and find peers to support you with that type of stuff, because it doesn't get easier. And as you get older, it doesn't get easier. You just learn to digest it better. So if you're young or you're still having a hard time understanding it, just reach out for help, talk about it, talk to your parents or parent about it, because I didn't know that my parents knew where I was coming from, but they definitely did. So yeah, I think that'd be it.
All right. Well, should we go to lunch?
Probably. I'm starving.
Okay.
I'm about to fall asleep.
Well, hey, thanks everybody. Stay mobile. We'll see you next time.
Bye.